Also, with protein intake, when you're dieting, at least now, maybe that's changed. But as far as like if you're dieting, do you tend to try to stick to that 1 gram per pound? Or I know you were talking about this, I feel like last time where you've
Yeah. It's a
experimented with lower
I mean,
protein.
it's a general rule, like plus or minus that a little bit. Context again, right? If we're talking about contest prep, you're dieting to extreme levels of leanness. The rate of loss is what you probably want to look at as the high priority, because no matter where your protein intake is at, if your rate of loss is too aggressive, chances are you're going to be more at risk for muscle loss. So that's kind of like the highest priority I look at. And then also too, you factor in like early in a prep when your body fat levels are higher, you can be more aggressive with that rate of loss because you got an abundance of energy. But when you get deeper into it, you're getting leaner, then of course, yeah, you need to be a little more conservative. And, even then it's like, well, you're conservative, but it wouldn't hurt to have your protein elevated a little bit. As long as carbs aren't uber low, though. That's the thing too. It's like if the carbs are uber low, like to me, I'm really like, hey, just put your protein down a little bit more and give this person a little more carbs so they can actually train a little bit more effectively. And
Yeah.
sometimes when you're dieting for long periods of time, this is what people are talking about now. It's like it doesn't matter where you have your fat and carbs. Just make sure your calories are right and you're hitting enough protein. Well, I mean, if you're dieting chronically with lower carbs and you look flat the whole way through, I don't know about you, but I don't want to look shitty the entire way through a contest prep. I want to look decent at least some of the time.
Right.
So I think that's pretty important too. Like you should feel like you're a little more alive and you actually look like a bodybuilder, not just flat, stringy, depleted the entire way through. Then at the end, you're like, okay, now I'm bringing carbs up to fill myself out. Like to me, that's not very fun. Like I don't want to do that for like 6 months.
And that kind of ties in with the next one, why I brought it up, the protein. After 2 days, my muscle is still hurting. Should I train it again? Before you answer this one, I brought it up because I feel like I've told myself sometimes like, oh, I'm experiencing DOMS. Maybe my protein's too low because sometimes I sit under 1 gram per pound. But I'm like, nah, man. Maybe it has to do with my training and the way I'm doing, maybe approaching it, right? Because I'm pretty on point with it. Just because my protein's sitting a little bit under 1 gram per pound I doubt that's why I'm experiencing DOMs frequently. But
Could be
maybe you could
part of the
weigh in on
reason,
that.
maybe hard to say.
Yeah. Okay.
Training frequency too. If you're not training enough, like frequent enough. Back in the day when I was training things once a week, when I was doing more hit, like
Yeah.
I would do 2 sets a week for quads. That was it, Kenny. I would do hack squats and I would obliterate them. I mean, just had a training partner, of course, and I would actually go to failure
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
4 reps on a hack squat, which isn't too smart. But man, I was an animal back then with that. I would destroy my quads. Like I literally would be sore for like 3 or 4 days after that, and
Just two
sometimes
sets.
longer. Just 2 sets. And it's funny, like once I picked my frequency up to twice a week, like it totally went away for the most part. You get retrained if you're not training frequent enough. Or another reason is maybe you're just doing too much and
Not
you're not
getting my
recovering well
yeah.
from it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So my feeling is this though, whenever I'm sore, even if it's lightly sore, I'm not a fan of training like that. Like, I know some people will do it, do a set or two, like kind of goes away, it loosens up or whatever. But I'm like, man, it just doesn't feel good for me. I'm like, okay, if I would just wait one more day, then I might get better performance that way.
Right. Well, also the exercise selection, like if you're waiting so long before you repeat that same exercise, and even though you're seeing things go up, let's just say you're tracking those metrics,
Yeah.
performance is going up. I don't know about you, but if I wait too long before I repeat that exercise, like let's say it's 12, 14 days, let's say 14 days, two
You
weeks,
get sore, yeah.
I'll get really sore.
Especially if it's like an RDL or if it's
Yes,
the inclined dumbbell curl for biceps where you're more in that stress position, you're going to get a little more
yes,
sore from those things.
absolutely. Pullover machine, I have one and access to one, and if I wait 2 weeks before I repeat that same one, it's over. Like I'm sore for like 4 days.
Yeah.
So,
I think you
well,
could train with a little soreness,
mm,
but just for me personally, like I just rather be not sore and then train. It's
right,
almost like I kind of look at other sports like a baseball pitcher. You got a little bit of tenderness in your arm still. Like you're probably not gonna get as much out of that pitcher in the next game. Like their velocity and their control might be just a touch off. Give him another day's rest. That way he comes back and he's throwing, 100-mile fastballs again. So that's the way I kind of
yeah.
look at it.
I also think it's a fine balance, no? Repeating the same exercise too frequently, and then not only does it get boring, maybe it gets stale, maybe it starts not feeling good. What's your experience with that? Do you tend to want to repeat the same exercise at least weekly, or have you experimented with maybe rotating a little bit where they're more spread apart?
I'm more of a fan of keeping things a little more consistent. Just from a progression standpoint, it's easier to assess that way. Plus, I don't get bored easy. My personality, if I have a good workout and numbers are moving, or like, yeah, I got a great pump, those types of things, like I'm a happy bodybuilder. Like I'm not a personality that constantly has to change things out. I can eat the same things too every single day because I know when I prep, I get consistent with food, I get consistent with my training, I get consistent even with my, because I do daily walks, I'll get consistent with my routes. There's like 2 or 3 routes I always take because I know how many steps I'm probably going to get out of it and the time it usually takes. So it's just easier for me to assess. If things work, great, don't change nothing. If things are kind of off a little bit, okay, I need to change. But I know how to change because everything's pretty darn consistent.
No, giving people a lot to think about, even myself, because I repeat the same workouts, but I have like 4 or 5 that I cycle through, and maybe that's why I'm getting really sore these days. That question wasn't mine, by the way, but it's interesting. It's interesting they
Yeah.
asked it, and then I started thinking about it myself. And then I'm like, okay, well, I'm getting too
You know
sore
what's
now. It's
good?
like,
Like what I do too is I'll have like 3 or 4 go-tos for protein source, 3 or 4 go-tos for my carbs, 3 or 4 fats. Training, I might have 2, 3, 4 different like quad movements. And when I program, that's how I program. I say, okay, I might ask you, hey, Kenny, give me 3 of your best quad movements that you really just connect on, that are comfortable and safe for you and you enjoy. And then I'll get those 3, right? And then I'll move on to the next thing. Give me 3 hinge patterns. Then I'll go on to the next thing. Give me 3 of this, 3 of that. And then from there, I'm like, okay, which exercises are harder to do? And it's like, okay, let me make sure I'm not grouping a bunch of hard exercises all in one session. Let me start separating these things. So that way, as you can get through these sessions with high quality, less risk for injuries, you're enjoying it. So you're getting the most out of your training. So it's not like I'm looking at like science says this, this, and this. Like I use that to a certain degree, but it's more like if I ask you these things in that fashion, then I kind of know more or less how I'm going to program to get the most out of you with each session and getting the best recovery as possible. It's not always a easy sell though for some people because once you put it on paper for them, they're just like, doesn't seem like it's enough. It might not be enough in week 1, but if you're progressing, right? 3 weeks in, 4 weeks in, 6,
hmm.
and this is what usually happens with people are like that say like, oh, it's not enough. About a month into it, they're like, oh shit, this is getting hard. I'm like, yeah, because your performance is elevating because you have a nice sweet spot of volume and you're able to recover from it. So every time you're in the gym, you're getting the most out of each session. And
Well, yeah,
hopefully you don't get too sore, right? Like we're trying to, prevent you from being sore, when you get into the next
yeah,
session.
for sure. Like that's the thing, right? Like there's variables that come into play that are hard to control. I mean, you'd have to isolate them to know what it is that's causing it, right? Oh, protein. Okay, how do you really isolate if that's actually the thing? Or is it the training intensity? Like you're just training to failure, maybe too often, or really close to it, maybe your body can't sustain that. Or is it yeah, volume? Is it exercise selection? There's
It,
like too many moving
yeah,
variables.
even for me, like I can look back 10, 20, 30 years ago and say, oh, maybe it was that one variable is causing everything to happen, right? Like you see online, someone will say, oh, my back grew because of this. I'm like, is it that? And maybe some other things, or it's
Right.
just so unless you're controlling your variables perfectly, like it's hard to really interpret like what exactly is doing what. So it's just really trying to keep things consistent and having the understanding we're in the perfect world. It's not going to be perfect, but that's what I usually try to do though. Like I said, just 3 of this, 3 of this, 3 of this, 3 of this, and you can rotate it. Like some weeks it's like, well, maybe I'm going to do this next week. Let me rotate it to that. But over 6 weeks, 9 weeks, 12 weeks, 15, 18 weeks, it starts becoming consistent from a broader perspective. But if you're changing out exercises every single workout and you got a laundry list of exercises, then you have to think about like if you're newer to training or intermediate, like where's your skill level in
I,
execution of these movements?
we were talking about the stretch position. It's usually exercises like pull over, machine, by the way, pull down. You mentioned RDL. I'm not really doing those, but those are the ones that get me like sore. Dumbbell presses, if I haven't done, like, let's say it's like a flat dumbbell press, like those are the exercises that can make me quite sore,
Yeah.
especially if I'm pushing the intensity and the progress is going up. But it's not usually like a tricep push down. Like that's not doing
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The chest fly gets me. Like the first couple of times
Right.
I was doing it, it got me pretty good. But I've adapted to it now. Like every time I do
Okay.
it now, I don't really get too sore. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think that's probably
You're
the one
repeating that.
exercise. Yeah, I'm repeating it. I do it twice a week. So that's why I'm
Uh,
probably not getting as sore anymore. But I get myself in a pretty good stretch position at the bottom there on that.
yeah. That might be it though. Maybe it's a frequency thing. Maybe it's just a little bit
Maybe.
too long between. Yeah. Okay. Got me thinking. Nice.
I used to love being sore though. When I was in my 20s, I
Yeah.
always like I got sore. Oh yeah, I crushed that shit. Like that was a good
Yeah.
workout.
Yeah.
I loved actually having that feeling, but not so much anymore.
Also, did you train through this? You mentioned you didn't train through soreness, so
No, I fully
no.
recovered. And so I was
Okay.
only trained 3 days a week. So it's Monday, Wednesday,
Right.
Friday. Hit legs on Wednesday. Went train them again until the next Wednesday. It's probably why I was getting sore because I was just it's too much of a gap. I was getting detrained.
So
Yeah.
like even if your legs were sore but you had upper body, you'd wait
Oh,
or
I was
would you
training.
still?
No,
Oh,
it's still
okay. Yeah.
yeah. It's I'm talking like the same body part. Like if
Yeah.
your hamstrings are sore, you go into the next leg session, you got a little soreness there. It's like, yeah, I'm not gonna do leg curls. I'm not gonna
Right.
do an RDL again. I'm like, I might go, hey, let me do my upper body instead. Let me just switch it out. But yeah, I wouldn't train the same body part with soreness.
Well, Jeff, man, obviously we had more questions, but I want to be respectful of your time. You've gone over by quite a bit here, so I hope I didn't cut into your workout time.
Nah, man, you just cut into my rocking chair time, not my
Oh,
workout.
okay. That's all right. We can sacrifice some of that time, right?
And because now it's like on one side you're lightening the loads, going, well, it's less stress on the joints. But then if you're spending more time, now all of a sudden your set goes from let's say 30 seconds, now it's a minute. So you're doubling your time under a load, even though it's lighter, is it going to have an impact on your joints? Personally, what my experience has been